I was born and raised in East LA, and right next to East LA is Boyle Heights. Boyle Heights Beat was started in 2010, but at that time I was in high school and I looked like this. I was like 14 and I wasn't really interested in community journalism. But now, 14 years later, I'm interested. So I want to learn more about it.
So Boyle Heights Beat is a hyperlocal newsroom that writes for the community, by the community, and one unique aspect about this newsroom is that we train high school students to become reporters. We encourage them to write about issues that they're passionate about, to write about local businesses, really anything that drives their interests. We guide them through that process. We've been around for 14 years, going on 15 years, and that's essentially what Boyle Heights Beat is.
I joined Boyle Heights Beat my junior year of high school, so last year, and then I've been in the cohort for 2 years. I think Boyle Heights is it's a small POC community, and I think it's overlooked very often. I think Boyle Heights Beat is really interesting because it's like community news by and for the community. It's not like we have outsiders writing about something they don't really understand. It's people who've grown up in East LA or in Boyle Heights and they know what they're talking about. And I just think it's really special that we can have something for the community that is kind of rare to see among communities like Boyle Heights.
I was actually a part of Boyle Heights Beat as a high school student back in 2011 when I was a junior in high school. So the idea was pretty simple, right? How do we establish a reliable news source in the East Side that is driven by youth? And one great thing that has been consistent also is that it's all community driven, right? So a lot of the students that go through our program either live in Boyle Heights or the East Side or attend school in the East Side. And so, you really get community members, in this case students, to write about their lived experiences in a way that informs the community.
The more you do research, the more you are in the program, the more you talk to people and the more articles you make. Does it allow you to see Boyle Heights in a different light, in a much more detailed light, I guess?
Yeah, for sure. I think there are a lot of places that I've lived next to my entire life, and it wasn't until I joined Boyle Heights Beat that I literally found out what they were, and I've been able to explore them. There's a lot of places that it's been that way. I think we just naturally overlook pieces that were, things were around, and it isn't until I was in Boyle Heights Beat where I was doing that research and I found out history of where I'm from and this community, but also just pillars of the community that I never even saw before.
All of this sounds great, but I'm a skeptical person. In a way, one could argue, creating an organization where most of the people that create your product are young people, primarily high school age, sounds a bit exploitative. It kind of reminds me of when I had an unpaid internship in college where I would get paid not with money, but with experience. It's hard buying food and putting gas in your car with experience, though. So I wonder, do these student reporters even get paid?
We do get paid.
Oh, well that shut me up real quick.
I think after our second story, we start to get paid by each story we post. So that's kind of like freelance, no?
Yeah. I think that was a pretty good incentive just for me applying in general. After your first story, after you finish it takes about 1 semester, just because you're learning about journalism and how you do journalism and its ethics and everything. Once you finish your first story and you continue, you can either do a podcast or an article, then you start getting paid for that.
It does give them that confidence to know that I come from this place that maybe not a lot of people know about, or maybe a lot of people do know about, but I have something to say, and they have a platform to do that.
Yeah, and they get paid as well.
Right,
they have the ability to get paid.
And it teaches them that there is an opportunity to have a career in this world of media and journalism and photography and all those kinds of things, that they can have a feasible career in something like this.
I noticed that I was able to tell stories that some people weren't hearing. So, for example, one of my articles was about how at Francisco Bravo Medical Magnet High School, there was this group of students and staff that at Bravo there's not enough funding from the district. So I was able to tell the story of the students and staff about how they were trying to fight for more funding, advocate for more funding. And they weren't really getting as enough attention as they really were wanting to get. And I think my story really helped bring that out there. And I think that's what's so powerful about journalism, is that you can really bring out the story of people who aren't being heard.
There is one person we haven't heard from yet, and that is Chris, the executive director. So I sat down with her and asked her a few questions.
So I was originally brought on as a consultant on this program in 2011. At that point, I really didn't ever think that I would be teaching or mentoring young people. I had been, my experience was in broadcast journalism. I was a TV news writer and producer. It was my first real experience really mentoring young people, and I kind of fell in love with it. I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the idea, the program. I learned a lot about this community.
What is it about it that really called to you?
It kind of takes you back to like when you first are a journalist, and like you fall in love with all the little bits of being a journalist. As journalists, like we know a little bit about a lot of things, and most of that comes from other people. So working with young people, it kind of brings that spark back because you get to see them experience that for the first time.
How does it feel?
I mean, I knew nothing about Boyle Heights when,
Yes,
I literally like knew nothing about. I think before I started working in this community, I had been here one time. It was a growing experience for myself too. It was outside of my comfort zone. I spoke Spanish, as I said. I lived in Spain. But it was also just getting to know the community as well as getting to know the people. And so I got to know the community a lot through young people's eyes and then through just like community members that we interviewed and the businesses that we profiled. And I've never really seen a community so really tight and with so much interesting history.
How does it feel to be the executive director of a program? Oops, sorry, I moved my. Of a program that is so integral to the community, but you happen to not be from the community.
Sometimes it is a strange place for me, like being a white woman, and in a largely, I mean, when you're talking 97% or something Latino community, there are times I feel it. Not so much. I think that community members always respect for what I've done with this program and what I've done for youth in this program. What I try to do now is use the privilege that I do have to do as much for the program as I can. And just like funders, I'm in a room with funders. A lot of those funders are white, not to make it about race, but I try to use that privilege to educate some of the funders on the needs of this community that maybe they wouldn't understand.
What are your hopes for Boyle Heights Beat for the future?
Boyle Heights Beat was approached by a funder called American Journalism Project. But one of the things they're going to do is use the Boyle Heights Beat model. And I'm going to help them create other like high school and community, like local newsroom hubs throughout the city of Los Angeles. It will be tweaked by neighborhood, like it won't all look exactly like Boyle Heights Beat, but we are going to use the kind of the high school journalism model, as well as like have really report like, por y para la comunidad, which is, like what we do for and by the community. So report hyper-local journalism like from inside the community.
Honestly, the expansion sounds great. It'll provide more opportunities for young people to explore their community through journalism. However, as you know, I'm a skeptical person. Part of me fears that the expansion of the program could also compromise the journalistic integrity of the stories that are allowed to be published. For example, could local businesses or local politicians donate money to these programs and essentially buy their way into dictating which type of stories are published or not published?
I don't think there's as much of an issue with nonprofit funding. It's not about the influence. For-profit is a little bit different because for-profit runs like a business. Nonprofit isn't a business. We, as Boyle Heights Beat, we're always very insistent on being journalists. If a student is interested in that topic and brings it up, then we would cover it. But we're not telling our students what they're going to be covering.
Well, that's great news. Honestly, I wish I was more open-minded when I was younger. I would have most likely joined Boyle Heights Beat in 2010 when they were created. But now, I'm glad they are a part of the community, and I'm glad they understand the responsibility of telling local stories and giving community members a platform to express themselves. And with the recent expansion, I'm glad more young people from other communities will have the opportunity to share stories and learn more about the people and places close to them.
It is a responsibility. I think, in a way, I think about how we report the news that's happening here, and sometimes that's not happening on bigger outlets or on TV, and it's kind of like a responsibility to share those stories that are not being shared on those other platforms or those big news stories, but they're reported here for the people that live here. And if that's what we can do for the community around us, which is, reporting the things that are actually happening here, then I would say it's important.